The Sharpe television series, adapted from Bernard Cornwell's novels, isn't just about one man's journey from the ranks to greatness. It's a sweeping epic that brings to life the grit, blood, and brilliance of the Napoleonic Wars. While Richard Sharpe is at the centre, the series is packed with memorable characters, from loyal soldiers to cunning politicians. But among them stands a man whose name is known far beyond the battlefield or fiction. Sir Arthur Wellesley, known in history as the Duke of Wellington. Wellesley's appearances in the Sharpe series anchor the story in historical realism and offer viewers a window into the mind of one of Britain's greatest military leaders. And in this video, we will be exploring the man that his friends would call Nosy. He himself has been portrayed in countless films and shows, all trying to capture his brilliance and aura. But we will be focusing on his portrayal in Sharpe, from the early beginnings under David Troughton to Hugh Fraser, who took up the mantle after Sharpe's Eagle. We'll see how his character developed over the seasons, the differences between the TV version from the novels, and the legacy he left behind. A quick side note, I am aware that there are many differences between the TV and novel versions of this character, so for consistency, this analysis is based on the TV version of the character and not the novel version. Let us begin by getting into our time machine and travelling back to 1769, Dublin. Sir Arthur Wellesley, born Arthur Wellesley, was born in Dublin in 1769. The exact date of his birth is not officially determined, but the most consistent date we have from historians is the 1st of May, 1769. He was born to an aristocratic Anglo-Irish family and spent his early childhood at Dangan Castle, the family seat. The family had occupied the land since the conquest of Henry II of England. In 1781, at age 12, he was sent to school at Eton, but his father's death the same year threw the family into financial turmoil. Arthur's mother withdrew him from Eton to be schooled in Belgium and France. She saw little promise in her son, and she thought that the military was the best career choice for him, and, in his widowed mother's own words, said that he would be food for powder and nothing more. His early commissions were due in part to the influence of his brother Richard, who was forging his own career in public life and did a great deal to help his younger brother. He first saw action during the early years of the French Revolutionary Wars, where he learnt valuable lessons on leadership, organisation, and tactics. India, however, is where Wellington began to make his name. He sailed to India, where his brother Richard had been appointed Governor-General. Now a colonel, he was appointed chief advisor to the Nizam of Hyderabad's army. He then led the 33rd Regiment at Malavelly and Seringapatam in 1799. Wellesley learnt a lot in India that would prove vital in his Peninsular War campaigns. This included the importance of discipline, diplomacy with allies, intelligence gathering, manoeuvring, secure supply lines, and naval support. He was promoted to Major General in 1802 during the Second Maratha War, and at Asai on the 23rd of September 1803, he won his first major victory. He later regarded this as the best battle he ever fought. This is actually where the first of many changes between the novels and the TV adaptation take place. In the show, Sharpe saved Wellesley's life from a French ambush in the peninsula. However, in the novels, Sharpe saved Wellesley's life at the Battle of Asai itself, which earned Sharpe the Field Commission. After this, he returned to England in 1806, where he embarked on a political career as a Tory Member of Parliament for Rye. He continued his political career before serving in Copenhagen in 1807. In 1808, Wellesley was made Lieutenant General and sent to Portugal, where he defeated the French at Roliça and Vimeiro. During the later engagement, he checked the French columns with a reverse slope defence, a tactic that became his trademark. Then, in 1809, our TV story with Sir Arthur Wellesley begins. Throughout the Sharpe series, Sir Arthur Wellesley serves as a pillar of leadership and integrity. His interactions with Sharpe highlight the themes of meritocracy and the challenges of military command during the tumultuous period in European history. He is the anchor of authenticity, blurring the lines between fiction and reality. When Wellesley first appears in Sharpe's Rifles, with David Troughton playing the role, we see Sharpe save Wellesley's life during a French ambush, leading to Sharpe's field promotion to lieutenant. A significant turning point in Sharpe's life, and a somewhat unorthodox move on Wellesley's part. This act introduces him as a leader who values actions and merit over class distinction. When Wellesley sends Sharpe on a mission in this episode, and Sharpe successfully completes it and reports back to Wellesley, you can see Wellesley exude a sense of pride in Sharpe.
You did damn well, Sharpe. Napoleon will be in a fearful rage about Torre Castro. Heads will roll, morale will suffer, which is all to the good. Because next month I mean to cross into Spain and give Marshal Victor a damn good thrashing.
It was a risk, rising this ruffian from the ranks. However, the reward he gains from Sharpe's success proves his eye for talent and judge of character. Not only did he gain in military success, but he also gained an officer who could be indebted to him. It also made Wellesley realise he could trust Sharpe with more missions ahead. By Sharpe's eagle, Wellesley is disillusioned with some of the incompetence among the officers he has available to him, especially the ever detestable Sir Henry Simmerson, who was sent to Wellesley as reinforcements for his campaign in Spain. Wellesley, however, smart as a tack, shot through the underlying plot. He suspects Simmerson is a spy from Horse Guards, so entrusts Sharpe with destroying a key bridge, along with Simmerson, to keep the hounds at bay. What this scene shows is how much Wellesley relies on his advisors. They are his sounding board that help him with problems. Wellesley has an issue with Simmerson and wants options to resolve it. Hogan gives Wellesley a small crumb of an idea, and Wellesley jumps on it, and then it becomes the storyline for the episode. As the bridge is about to be blown up, Simmerson spots some French scouts. Now, any officer worth his salt would have gathered that this is a trap. Yet, Simmerson foolishly sends in Major Lennox to remove the French problem. And as suspected,
it's a trap!
Simmerson panics, and he blows up the bridge, leaving Sharpe's rescue party and Major Lennox stranded, with the latter unfortunately getting killed in action. But even worse than this, Simmerson loses the King's colours. When Simmerson goes to report the mission to Wellesley, it all starts quite civil. He asks Simmerson to replay the events that unfolded. Simmerson lies, of course, during the report, but Wellesley already knew what happened. Hogan had already informed him. However, I can only deduce that Wellesley wanted to give Simmerson the chance to see if there's any honour in coming clean first. As suspected, he doesn't, and we get one of the most replayed scenes in the entirety of the series.
Major Hogan leaves the worst to the last. He says you lost the King's colours.
The fault was not mine, sir. Major Lennox must answer.
Major Lennox answer with his life, as you should have done if you had any sense of honour. You lost the colours of the King of England. You disgraced us, sir. You shamed us, sir. You will answer.
What we also find out from this episode is that Wellesley is a man not to be trifled with. The confrontation between Wellesley and Simmerson is a pivotal moment that underscores his commitment to meritocracy and accountability within the British Army. What is truly amazing, and massive props to David Troughton for this, is how Wellesley quickly goes from calm and composed to deranged and disgusted. He was infuriated with so many things. Simmerson lied in a report, he let good men die in vain, he was incompetent, but worst of all, he lost the King's colours. Now, a military man like Wellesley understands the importance of this symbolism. It is seen as a huge dishonour, akin to, let's say, a Roman legion losing its eagle standard, just like Varus losing the 3 eagles at Teutoburg Forest. Wellesley then announces the restructuring of the South Essex Regiment, demoting it into a battalion detachment and appointing Sharpe as the new captain of the Light Company. Simpson protests, citing his connections at Horse Guard. However, this does not fly with Wellesley.
A man who loses the king's colours loses the king's friendship.
It serves as a turning point in the series, solidifying Sharpe's status and illustrating Wellesley's leadership principles. When Wellesley hears of Sharpe's intention to duel Mr. Berry after the assault on Josephina, he knows because of his rules of strict discipline, he cannot allow it. However, as he understands the motives behind this, him and Hogan find a loophole. He knows that Sharpe will get his revenge one way or another, so he sends them both out behind French lines in a scouting mission. His hope is that this will allow the situation to resolve itself, which was a clever move on his part. Rather than a duel, the unpredictability of their location ensures Berry gets his comeuppance. After the events of Sharpe's Eagle, we now have Hugh Fraser take on the role of Sir Arthur Wellesley, now referred to as Wellington. This is because David Troughton swore he'd never go on location in Ukraine again, which was a common problem with some of the actors and crew in the series. The harsh weather conditions and basic amenities were a major factor. This also caused Brian Cox to leave the show, which meant Major Hogan had to be written out of the rest of the series, and his part written into other Advisors of Wellington. In Sharpe's company, when Sharpe is demoted due to the arrival of a new commander, Colonel Wyndham, he brings his own officers to the regiment. Wellington doesn't intervene directly, however he knows that the battlefield will prove Sharpe's worth again. This shows Wellington's understanding of long-term strategy, both militarily and socially. Here we also see the Siege of Badajoz, one of the bloodiest engagements in the Napoleonic Wars. Throughout the episode, Sharpe begs to be put in the Forlorn Hope, for various reasons. A, because he knows that this is a certain way for promotion, and B, personal reasons. Teresa and his child are stuck there. However, he is denied time and time again. Before the final assault begins, he asks one last time of Wellington to be given command of the Forlorn Hope. Wellington refuses, and states that Sharpe is a rogue, but it is one of his rogues, and he won't countenance it. Wellington knows Sharpe is far too valuable of a soldier to be sent to certain death. It would be like losing an entire regiment, because he knows Sharpe can complete a mission that very few can. We also get a sense of humanity from Wellington. After the final assault ends and the bodies are laid out, in the show he is seen atop the breach wall, initially wanted to keep order and discipline by hanging those still looting within the city, yet he sees a dead Clayton, a soldier who we see in the episode with a wife and child. He understands that no one is immune from the horrors of war, especially now with Clayton dead, his wife raped and murdered, and their son, God who knows where. In reality, it's highly unlikely Wellington would have known the soldiers on this much of intimate level as we see here. Although it is known that when Wellington heard of the number of casualties suffered by the British and Portuguese armies in the assault, he broke down and burst into a passion of tears. In a letter to Lord Liverpool, written the following day, Wellington confided, "The storming of Badajoz affords as strong an instance of the gallantry of our troops as has ever been displayed. But I greatly hope that I shall never again be the instrument of putting them to such a test as that to which they were put last night." Having said all this, he did not oppose the looting of Badajoz. He felt it would discourage other Spanish cities from holding out against him. We don't see this specifically in the show, but he doesn't tell Major Nen immediately to stop the soldiers from looting, only a few to start, whilst giving the rest until midnight. In other episodes of the series, like Sharpe's Enemy, Wellington sends Sharpe on a dangerous mission to retrieve hostages from a town held by deserters. This decision underscores his trust in Sharpe's tactical mind and moral judgment, He knows Sharpe can navigate complexity and violence with integrity, qualities Wellington himself embodies, though more reservedly. In Sharpe's honour, Wellington must juggle diplomacy and deception. When Sharpe is accused of rape and murder, Wellington must balance political relationships and military priorities. His choice to spare Sharpe's life shows what we already know. Wellington values Sharpe. But this is not the only reason. He trusts Sharpe. He trusts that Sharpe would never do anything to disgrace himself or his country. Wellington never truly believed the accusations against Sharpe, yet he understands the political theatre around the situation surrounding him. His faith in Sharpe was rewarded, not just by being proven right that the accusations were false, but as Sharpe dealt a significant damage to the French, which helped complete victory at the Battle of Vittoria. In Sharpe's Gold, which was a rather bizarre tonal shift in the series, we see a few different sides of Wellington's persona. We get an awkward Wellington, when he's put off guard by the arrival of his cousin Bess and her daughter Ellie, all whilst negotiating a trade of rifles for men that the Spanish guerrilla El Casco has captured. It puts it all in a loop. His interactions with his family are that of annoyance. He understands why they are there in search of a husband and a father, but it inconveniences him during a pivotal time in the war. He understands the land better than them and knows that if they go out unprotected, they would be in harm's way. He also needs more men for the upcoming battles with Napoleon, so offers a second chance to the deserters to rejoin the ranks and avoid the hangman's noose. Now, this clemency shows two things. One, it inspires loyalty to the deserted troops, to discourage them from leaving again. And two, it shows the leadership and great oratory skills Wellington possesses. In Sharpe's Gold, we get more scenes of Wellington than others, albeit in a somewhat disjointed storyline that plays into more mythology than history. In fact, according to Jason Sulkey, who played Rifleman Harris, the episode was originally cast with different actors, and had to be re-scripted to avoid paying the original cast. This is one reason it differs greatly from the book, and is not thought highly of by Sean Bean. Sharpe's mission continues the thread of Wellington using Sharpe to prove his suspicions correct, whilst also exploiting the French. In this episode, Colonel Brand, who is played by Mark Strong, unbeknownst to Sharpe, is a traitor. However, Wellington and Ross have had their suspicions for a while, but decide to play along with Brand's plan. Eventually, as always, Sharpe proves his treason. And, ultimately, he is sentenced to a, let's call it an early bath. Wellington knows that if anyone can uncover rot, it would be Sharpe. It shows again Wellington's reliance on Sharpe for high-risk, high-reward operations. He's distant, but always aware, moving pieces with surgical precision. He's not Sharpe's friend, but he's his sponsor, and his belief in Sharpe shapes the arc of the entire series. In Sharpe's Waterloo, Wellington comes full circle. The strategist becomes a historical figure, standing firm against Napoleon in one of history's most pivotal battles. Fraser's performance is marked by a calm and calculated demeanour, reflecting Wellington's strategic acumen and stoic leadership style. His interactions with subordinates, particularly the inexperienced Prince of Orange, highlights his frustration with incompetence and his commitment to effective command. It also is implied that Wellington holds more affection and trust for Sharpe in this episode, hence why he sends him scouting the French troop positions. He relies on this information. I did enjoy Wellington's complimentary quip on Sharpe's cricketing skills, remarking, with enthusiasm,
I gave you him and I gave you Sharpe. Where is Sharpe? Duty? Sharpe both fiendish.
Fraser's Wellington is not just a distant figure issuing orders, he is actively engaged in the battle's progression, making critical decisions that influence the outcome. His presence adds gravitas to the narrative, grounding the fictional elements of the story in historical reality. It all rounds off in the end when he rewards Sharpe, who had given Wellington so much, with command of the South Essex to finish off the French.
Sharpe!
Your Grace.
What are you waiting for? Forward and complete your victory. Don't let them stand. See them off our land. Your battalion, Mr. Sharpe. I'm beholden to you. To you all. Now go on, they won't stand.
This is a fitting end to the campaign against the French. Not only do we see Sharpe evolve throughout the series, but we see Wellington be his guide in a way, pushing him further and further into a leader of men. But this isn't the last time we see Wellington. He appears at the beginning of Sharpe's challenge, once again only trusting Sharpe to solve a problem. In fact, they are so in sync with each other that all that is required to summon the legend himself is 3 words. After the events depicted in the Sharpe series, Wellington's historical trajectory continues its meteoric rise. Following the triumph at Waterloo in 1815, he is celebrated across Europe and named Duke of Wellington. In the world of Sharpe, Wellington's absence in the later episode isn't neglect, it's transition. He no longer needs to be present on the front lines. His influence has shaped the outcome of the war, and his trust in Sharpe and men like him ensured the outcome. Sharpe, in many ways, becomes the living legacy of Wellington's meritocratic ideals. Throughout the series, Wellington relies on a small circle of trusted men, each contributing to his success in different ways. But it is his ability to manage them, to trust their strengths and delegate with confidence that highlights his effectiveness as a commander. He understands that war isn't won by generals alone, but by men who can hold the line, think ahead, and do what must be done, often without recognition. Brian Cox as Major Hogan is a sharp, pragmatic, and often cynical Irish engineer officer who appears in Bernard Cornwall's Sharpe Rifles and Sharpe Seagull. He's not a frontline fighter like Richard Sharpe, but he's one of the smartest men in the room, and he knows it. He is one of Wellington's most trusted officers, serving as his go-to man for strategy, intelligence, and problem solving. Their relationship is built on mutual respect and a shared no-nonsense approach to war. Wellington relies on Hogan not for flattery or formality, but for blunt truth and effective action. Many situations have been resolved or escalated because of Hogan. For example, in Sharpe Seagull, Wellington is lied to by Simpson about the bridge at Val de la Casa. However, because, and I quote, Hogan's coat buttons up tight over a number of other duties, he is able to relay the actual truth to Wellington on what happened, showcasing the trust they have with each other, that he would trust Hogan's word over the word of someone who was seen as a superior officer. We also have Major Nairn, who is Wellington's intelligence officer in Sharpe's company, enemy, and honour. While he plays a similar behind-the-scene roles as Hogan did, his methods and demeanour are colder, more secretive, and at times ruthless. Nairn's relationship with Wellington is built on discretion and results. He operates in the shadows, handling espionage, counterintelligence, and politically sensitive missions that demand deniability and precision. Their relationship is built less on open dialogue and more on shared understandings on what's necessary. Wellington doesn't micromanage Nairn. He gives him leeway to act independently, knowing Nairn won't flinch from hard choices. Having said that, one of the few times Wellington does get angry with his advisors is at Nairn.
Good morning, sir. I have a ransom note, Nairn. They want me to send Sharpe with the gold. Why do the scum want me to send Sharpe, Nairn?
Damned if I know, sir.
You'll be damned if you don't find out, Nairn!
We then get Mungo Munro, who was created for the television series and largely took over the role given to Hogan in the books, which is why there are a lot of characteristics that are somewhat similar. However, Munro loved to blow his bagpipes. He helped arrange for the delivery of rifles to Spanish partisan El Casco in exchange for returning British deserters to Wellington. When the Irish company serving the Spanish joined up the British Army, Munro and Wellington were both suspicious of them, so assigned Sharpe to train them, largely hoping that they would desert. Sharpe disapproved of this plan, and ended up leading them into defeating Brigadier General Guy Lou and covering up the fact that they had nearly abandoned him and his men thanks to Lou's manipulation. This did displease Wellington, however, as on this occasion he had hoped Sharpe didn't succeed. We also have Major General Ross, who was another character that didn't appear in the novels. Apart from being a pseudonym adopted by Hector McCandless when captured in the novel Sharpe's Tiger. Ironically, Ross replaced both Hogan and Nairn's characters in the adaptation from the novels, and where they both died in the novel, he survived in both cases in the show. Hogan dies from fever in Sharpe's siege, whereas Ross survived. Nairn dies at the Battle of Toulouse from canister shot, whereas Ross again survives. His role was similar to that of Hogan, and even has the same snuff obsession. They even had a little mirror image scene where he tells Wellington the "that's what you pay me for" line. He got quite on well with Sharpe though, even to the extent that he was asked to give the bride away at Sharpe's wedding to Jane Gibbons, which I'm probably thinking he regrets. Wellington's advisors, Hogan, Nairn and Round Ross, each served a distinct vital role in shaping Wellington's campaigns and reinforcing his command. Together, they formed the backbone of Wellington's war machine, thinking, watching, and holding the line while he led from the front. These men didn't just support Wellington, they enabled him. Without them, his brilliance might have faltered under the weight of chaos, betrayal, and bureaucracy. With them, he conquered. After the events of the original Sharpe series, the Duke of Wellington continued to shape the course of European and British history. His greatest triumph, the defeat of Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, secured his reputation as one of the most brilliant and unshakable military commanders. Wellington was elevated to near mythic status, receiving titles, land, and honours from across Europe, including being named Prince of Waterloo by the Dutch. Following his military success, Wellington transitioned into a powerful political role. He served in several high-ranking government positions, including Master General of the Ordnance and Commander-in-Chief of the Army. Most notably, he became Prime Minister twice, first from 1828 to 1830, and briefly again in 1834. Though a staunch conservative, Wellington recognised the need for stability and reluctantly passed the Catholic Emancipation Act in 1829 to avoid civil unrest in Ireland. However, his fierce opposition to the Reform Act of 1832, which sought to modernise Britain's electoral system, contributed to his political decline. In his later years, Wellington remained a respected statesman and military authority. He was reappointed Commander-in-Chief of the Army in 1842, a position he held until his death in 1852, at the age of 83. His funeral, held at St Paul's Cathedral, was a monumental national event, attended by thousands and marking the end of an era. Wellington's legacy, both in history and in the Sharpe universe, is that of a disciplined, calculating leader who valued order, loyalty, and results. He was deeply respected for his clarity of vision and his ability to hold the line under immense pressure. He helped define British military and political leadership in the 19th century and left a legacy of professionalism, pragmatism, and unshakable command. In the world of Sharpe, Wellington's legacy is not just military, it's institutional. He represents the professionalism of the British Army, a shift from aristocratic blundering to disciplined, calculated warfare. He's a symbol of the new kind of leadership emerging from the Napoleonic Wars. Hard, unsentimental, but undeniably effective. Sharpe may fight the battles, but it's Wellington who ensures the war is won. His role in the series is a reminder that even amidst fiction, history's giants leave deep footprints, and in Sharpe's journey, none are more defining than the general who saw potential where others saw only class. Thank you for watching this character spotlight on the Iron Duke himself, Lord Wellington. If you enjoyed what you saw, please do like, share and subscribe to my channel to watch more character analysis, tier lists, rankings and much more. I hope to see you again, and as always, I'll see you over the hills and far away.